Hello, North by Northwest Region 13 friends. My name is Shelley Partis, the current Region 13 Education Coordinator. I hope you are enjoying the 2022 virtual convention, Happy Together. I don't know about you, but I'm really looking forward to the chorus contest later today. However, in the meantime, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce a special presentation brought to you by your regional management team and your regional education team. Dr. Jim Henry was born into a barbershop family and first joined the Barbershop Harmony Society at the age of 11. With over 40 years of barbershop singing, he has many accomplishments, and these are just a few. Dr. Jim has led his amazing chorus, the Ambassadors of Harmony, to win multiple medals, including several international or national awards since becoming their director in 1991, and is also the International Quartet Champion bass of the Gashouse Gang and Crossroads Championship Quartets. His accomplishments, however, stretch well beyond just his barbershop life. He is also the head of choral studies at the University of Missouri St. Louis, and is recognized as an outstanding conductor and teacher, and he has also won composition awards for his songs and piano pieces. Dr. Jim is a world-renowned conductor, coach, clinician, teacher, lecturer, and just an inspiring barbershop legend. Please enjoy this wonderful message from Dr. Jim Henry.
Hello to the North by Northwest region, region number 13. I'm Jim Henry, and I'm just so honored to be invited to speak to you all. I wish I could be there in person, but this will have to do. We've gotten used to this with COVID and all of that. But anyway, it's such an honor to be invited, and thank you so much for that. You know, Sweet Adelines has been a huge part of my life since as long as I can remember. Many of my earliest memories of barbershop consist of my mom taking me to her Sweet Adelines rehearsals and Region 5 events. My mom was a regional quartet champion whose quartet Most Cordially Yours competed in London at the Royal Albert Hall. Some of you have been in Sweet Adelines for a while, might remember when they competed there. And I used to listen to her practice with her learning tapes, and I'm sure that I could still sing tenor to all of her songs, if not for the fact that puberty lowered my voice a good couple of octaves. In the fall of 1982, my first semester in college, I saw a notice on the music department bulletin board. And it was announcing that the local Sweet Adeline chorus was looking for a director. Well, I grew up in barbershop, as I said, so I called the number and auditioned, and at 18 years old, I found myself leading a chorus for the very first time through their charter and their first competition. During that time, I attended one of the Sweet Adeline's Directors Symposia in Denton, Texas. I wound up singing in the chorus there that was directed by Gene Barford, a truly magical, eye-opening experience for me, for sure, and one that I'm happy to say was rekindled years later when Gene coached my quartet Crossroads as we were preparing for the international contest. So Sweet Adelines has been a huge part of my life and education. A large percentage of the women in my life are or have been Sweet Adelines, including my mom, who sang tenor, my mother-in-law, who sings tenor, and my beautiful wife, Gita, who sings tenor. In 2013, researchers at the Sahlgrenska Academy at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden did an experiment in which they studied the heart rates of high school choir members as they sang together in unison. And what did they discover? That singing with others has a calming effect on the heart and potentially contains many of the health benefits of yoga. But that's not the neatest part of it. They also confirmed that when we sing together, an amazing thing happens. Our hearts synchronize. We all come to rehearsals with our own unique, crazy quilt of backgrounds and stresses and values and neuroses, etc. But the moment we start to sing together, we relax a bit and our hearts start beating together as one. Can you imagine that? Everybody in the room, their hearts start beating together at the same time. A single, small, silent heartbeat, a shared song. Yet that seemingly mundane act has the power to yield untold benefits. One day, I was leaving a middle school that I was visiting. In my job, I get to travel around to a lot of schools and coach choirs and speak to choir teachers and their students. It's a wonderful thing that I get to do. And I was leaving a middle school that I was visiting, and I happened upon a plaque in front of their school. And the plaque had a quote which was attributed to Mother Teresa, and it read, "We can do no great things, only small things with great love." Now, something about that phrase struck me like a lightning bolt. It was so simple, so eloquent, so true, and so universal to every aspect of life. We can do no great things, only small things with great love. I have quoted it many times since then. Now, here's an example of a string of small things done with great love. In 1945, a lady named Edna Mae Anderson traveled from Tulsa to Detroit with her husband Bill to attend the SPEBSQSA National Convention. Inspired by the convention and no longer content to just be an audience member, she decided that the time had come to form a women's organization dedicated to barbershop harmony. The first small thing. Upon her return to Tulsa, she contacted other barbershoppers' wives to meet and discuss the idea. That meeting took place in her home on July 13th, Friday the 13th. Oh, 13th is your region number, as a matter of fact. And who says the 13th is unlucky? The next small thing. The group decided to have an official kickoff on July 23rd at the Hotel Tulsa, the same place the men had formed SPBSQSA 6.5 years earlier. And 150 women showed up. That's the next small thing. A couple of weeks later, on August 5th, the first meeting of the first chapter of Sweet Adelines took place. And what was the name of that first chapter? A lot of you already know. The Automaton chapter. The atom. At that time, thought to be the smallest particle of a chemical element. "We have an atom of energy to start the organization with," said Edna Mae, "and we will do it to the tune of Sweet Adeline." Edna Mae Anderson knew, without having to read Mother Teresa's quote, that this great vision she had would grow out of a series of small things done with great love. We all have a grand vision. But a vision doesn't become reality in a puff of smoke, like some genie from a lamp. It is wrought from thousands upon thousands of small things done with great love. People are impatient. My students can't wait to graduate. My friends can't wait to retire. We get so wrapped up in where we want to be that we forget that all the good, juicy, worthwhile stuff is found along the way. It truly is the journey, not the destination, that matters. It's a cliche, but it's true. I learned this from my experiences with music. The goal of each of my choral ensembles is to give a polished and life-changing performance of a piece of music. If we are successful, people in the audience they'll think we're something special. but they don't really get the full impact of what that performance represents. That 3-minute song they just heard is the result of hours and hours of detailed rehearsal. I mean, when you think about all the small things that go into a worthy performance of a single song by a chorus, it will boggle your mind. We have to learn the notes, the words, the rhythms. We have to stand with good posture and manage our breath properly and increase our range and maintain a consistent tone. We have to articulate our consonants and form pure vowels. We have to be perfectly in sync and balance our part in relationship to all the other parts. We have to sing accurate pitches and tune the chords as they go by and maintain tonal center. We have to incorporate elements of artistry, dynamics, tempo, phrasing. Basses need to sing with beauty but lay down a firm foundation. Baritones need to blend into the sound, but they have to be full enough to support the basses and fill out the chorus, being careful, however, to soften up when they're above the leads so as not to stick out of the cone. Leads have to carry the message, so it's important that they have lots of personality when they sing, but not too much individual personality or they won't blend with the other leads. The tenors have to have clear voices that are light enough to not overpower the leads, but strong enough to add sizzle to the sound. Too much vibrato, especially in the tenor voice, will kill us all. But you can't sing a pure straight tone or you'll lose the spin in the sound. The fifth should be sung sharper than the piano would play it. The third should be flatter than the piano would play it. But since everybody sings the third way too flat anyway, you should imagine singing it sharper than the piano would play it. Sing to the audience, but don't ever take your eyes off the director. Energy, energy, energy. Communicate the message from your heart and, oh yeah, look like you enjoy this. We need a venue. We need an audience. We need tickets, PR, programs, a stage crew, risers, outfits, and probably a qualified therapist. How do we ever do it all? More importantly, why do we do it all? The answer can be found in the second part of Mother Teresa's quote. We can do no great things, only small things with great love. We do it because we love it. A few years ago, my university started hosting an a cappella music camp called Acapalooza Summer for high school students. Debbie Cleveland, who I'm sure most of you know, has been the director for the treble voices since the beginning of that camp. At the very first Acapalooza Summer, there was a girl that attended that camp. Let's call her Anne, who was a darling young lady who was on the autism spectrum. She lacked many social skills. She would randomly and loudly blurt out thoughts and ideas that popped into her head during rehearsals. She often looked out into space instead of at the director. She had a habit of taking huge quantities of food from the buffet line. One day it was pickles. She took all the pickles. Another day, she took almost all the roast beef from the sandwich making station. Another day, she took all the leftover pasta and put it in plastic bags to take home. But the students were sweet to her, befriending her and being sure to include her in everything they did. Well, the camp culminated with a concert on Friday night. After 4 days, Anne stood up there and performed with the other kids so professionally, I swear that I doubt anyone in the audience would have noticed she was any way different than anyone else. The students rose to the occasion and sang the concert of their lives. And when it was over, these students who didn't know each other 4 days ago, didn't know each other at all 4 days ago, wept and embraced one another as if they were lifelong friends. And frankly, many of them still are friends to this day. And Anne was right there in the midst of it. She hugged me at least 5 times. She hugged Debbie at least 5 times more than she hugged me. Then she insisted that Debbie and I hug each other, which was awkward, but we did it. In the lobby afterwards, Anne's mother sought Debbie out and told her that this was the first time she had ever seen her daughter Anne hug anyone voluntarily. Can you imagine that? The first time a mother sees her daughter initiate an embrace without any reservation. And the recipient was her daughter's choir director. Music did that for Anne. How can anyone not love music? Now, how many gold medals is that worth? The singers in our choruses do not get paid. Actually, they pay. My students receive only one measly credit hour, yet rehearse for about 4.5 hours a week. But there is a certain spark of electricity that goes through you when you finally really tune that chord you've struggled with and hear the overtones start screaming as you sing. You love that you just made that happen for your own sake. But in the back of your mind, you know that you have just taken another step closer to the performance you envision for yourself at some culminating event like a contest or a show or a concert. And you know that the more of those kinds of details you can master, the better the final performance is going to be. Ultimately, you realize as a choral singer that the level of gratification you feel at the end of a final performance that you have just given is in direct correlation with the amount of joy and passion you brought to the learning process along the way. The countless baby steps that got you there. You understand Mother Teresa's quote, "We can do no great things, only small things with great love." Without love, our music, to paraphrase the Bible, is nothing more than sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. People say the devil is in the details. Have you heard that expression, the devil is in the details? But I found that that is not true. God is in the details. All the little things that average people consider tedious or unnecessary or annoyances, actually contribute the building blocks of a meaningful life and a realized vision. When you start looking at life or activities in this way, you start to love it all. You begin to see the value in doing even the small things to the very best of your ability. Soon it becomes what you are, not just what you do. You stop working for a gold medal and start working for relevance. Now, I've told this story many times before, but several years ago, my college choir and I had the opportunity to visit the Cologne Cathedral in Germany. Now, you have to see this structure truly to believe it. It presents the largest facade of any church in the entire world. Only one church on earth has a taller spire, but the Cologne Cathedral has not one spire, but two, identical to one another, each one stretching 515 feet in the air, more than 200 feet taller than the Statue of Liberty. The first stone was laid in 1248, and in 1880, 632 years later, the structure was finally completed. My students and I stood in front of those two spires, speechless and motionless, for about 20 minutes, trying in vain to just take it all in. The proportion, the intricacy, the history. We tried so hard to grasp it all. I started studying one of the spires. Embedded among the columns, as far up as my eyes could see, were hundreds of carvings. Apostles, saints, angels, floral patterns, and each one was remarkably detailed. I could see fingers and small folds in the robes and individual curls of hair. And I just knew that the figures at the top were just as detailed as the ones within my sight. And suddenly the thought occurred to me that some person hundreds of years ago carved each and every one of those figures. Now that person had to know that no one would see the angels near the top of those spires. But still, I am sure he carved out the pupils in every eye with all the care he gave to the ones close to the ground. Now, why would he do that? Well, the answer is because he was a craftsman, an artist. He didn't know how to do it any other way. He couldn't build the entire cathedral, but he could carve pupils in the eyes of an angel. And he did that one small thing with all the love, care, and craftsmanship that he had. Now, a while back, Karen Breitert, who many of you probably also know, heard me tell this story to my chorus. And a few days later, she sent me a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow titled The Builders. Here's one stanza from that poem, and I think you'll understand why she sent it to me. In the elder days of art, builders wrought with greatest care, each minute and unseen part, for the gods see everywhere. We can do no great things, only small things with great love. Whether we're creating a cathedral, raising a child, preparing a piece of music, or sustaining a chorus or organization devoted to music. All great accomplishments are a result of thousands upon thousands of small things done with great love. Edna Mae Anderson called the first chapter of Sweet Adeline's, back then in 1945, the automaton chapter. The atom was the smallest particle that a person could imagine in those days. About 15 years later, smaller particles called quarks came along. Now some physicists and mathematicians propose an even smaller phenomenon, smaller than atoms, smaller than quarks. According to Joseph Egger, author of the book Einstein's Violin, these phenomena are smaller than any particle known or even speculated about. Despite not having internal structures of their own, they are the elements from which everything is made. What are these elements? Strings. Undulating strings, each one measuring, according to Egger, a billionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a centimeter. According to string theorists, the entire universe is made up of vibrating strings. Music. Countless tiny musical strings harmonizing with one another like a microscopic orchestra to create the vastness of the universe. Well, may this time of learning and fellowship find you, musical beings yourself, literally made up of unseen musical strings, discovering and building upon those small things that you can do with great love, in service to your music, to your family, and most importantly, maybe to yourself. As long as you have breath, your cathedral is still being built. Carve the pupils in the eyes of the angels, even when you know people won't notice it. Those small things done with great love that eventually coalesce to become great things. In the elder days of art, builders wrought with greatest care, each minute and unseen part, for the gods see everywhere. Let us do our work as well, both the unseen and the seen. Make the house where gods may dwell beautiful, entire, and clean. Thank you so much for giving me this time and for the invitation to speak. I wish you all the very best, and I hope that I'll get to meet you in person someday very, very soon. Until then, goodbye and God bless you all.